What's going on, all you Edward Furlong enthusiasts? Your two favorite horror reviewers are back again for the 31 Days of Horror, not the 31 Days of Horrors. And we're happy to be back tonight. We're reviewing the sequel to the 1989 film Pet Sematary. This one starring Eddie Furlong and Clancy Brown and Anthony Edwards. We're talking about Pet Sematary 2.
Something terrifying is happening in Ludlow, Maine. Again.
Pick up your family and get the hell out of that town.
Pet Semetary 2.
Of course, from part two, we have this movie coming out from the same director, Mary Lambert, 1992, 3 years after the original film came out. But this time they took it a different way, essentially focusing on a teenage boy instead of a family and young kids. Teenage boy and his father, basically his mom dies, they return to her hometown to live, and that's where they encounter the pet cemetery that essentially raises the dead.
So, how do they involve pets this time? Well, Eddie Furlong's dad, Anthony Edwards, is a veterinarian. So he sees wounded animals and, gives shots and boosters and all that. He sets up a little shop in this new town where the mom used to live, her hometown. I think she was an actress, and she passes away early on in the film. So they, want to move back and kind of stay close to her, even though she's gone. They figured it'll be a good way to do that. And they, right off the bat, Eddie Furlong's character, whose name is Jeff in this film, he's trying to make friends at school, finding it hard, getting picked on by the big town bully, the older kid, the bully. He becomes friends with the town sheriff, played by Clancy Brown, Gus Gilbert, his son, who's in the poster there behind him. He takes up a friendship with him. Basically because both of them get picked on, really. That's really what it comes down to. And then the whole side thing where Clancy Brown's character, who is his friend's stepdad and the sheriff, of course, and he's just a real scumbag at home. He's the kind of guy that, basically belittles his wife in front of the kid and gets pissed because the dog's out barking. So one day he just goes outside and grabs a shotgun and just blast the dog. So for no reason at all, he's just an asshole. It's Clancy Brown playing an asshole in this one. So he shoots the dog, and the kids had heard about this pet cemetery up on some ancient Indian burial ground where they're hoping to bury the pet dog and hopefully revive it and bring it back to life.
And we know how that goes, right?
Yeah.
Resurrecting dead animals, and of course it doesn't turn out too well. It sets up in a lot more scenes in this film, but they do, in terms of gore in this film, they do really raise it, have more of that compared to the first movie, I thought, more practical effects with animals and humans, and what happens to Gus's character that's long overdue because he's a piece of shit, as you said. Something really bad happens to him. He has like a bandage on his neck and it's super infected. And of course, you kind of see him start to like decompose, looking dead, and sets up a lot of, I would say, funny scenes with him, and also gruesome scenes. Funny and gruesome at the same time. But really the standout here in this film is, of course, Edward Furlong having a great career in the 90s. Obviously, T2, one of the greatest films from the 90s. In terms of effects and just overall amazing sequels. So he was big during this time and really carries this movie a lot that he's going through as a young kid with his mother dying, moving to this town, doesn't know many people, is getting picked on. And he meets this other kid that's going through the same kind of abusive stuff, in his household. And, them having this bond together really creates a good dynamic in this.
Eddie Furlong, he was coming off of Terminator 2 from 1991.
Yep.
Maybe not the best choice to go right into horror, but hey, he got to be the main star. Anthony Edwards was big, of course, around the time, coming off a few years later, coming off of Top Gun and, ER, not sure when ER started, but he'd eventually find more success with that show. playing the sympathetic dad. I thought he did a good job in this. They didn't give him much to chew on, but I thought he was a believable veterinarian in this town and sympathetic to his son having lost his mom, and just being a family that's kind of down in the dumps on things and trying to come into this town and sort of rebuild, and then having all this bad stuff happen off the bat. And it's all on the backdrop of this grunge soundtrack here, with a lot of early 90s grunge music for no reason, like we were talking about, just to fit the times. And even Edward Furlong, the way he dressed and stuff, reminded me of how the grunge rockers used to dress, with the flannel tied around their waist, the leather jackets and all that. So it's very much dated. But it's to be expected. I mean, it's a horror sequel. They're trying to do some different things in the sequel here. They definitely up the gore, like you mentioned. There's some really gory scenes here, and some mutilation, really involving animals and humans alike, and some a comically gory performance from Clancy Brown's really what stands out to me. As he ends up getting killed basically and resurrected through the pet cemetery the same, and slowly losing his mind. And at the dinner scene stands out to me, when he's at the dinner table and kind of like grunting for more potatoes, and his wife's making food on the stove, and he's grunting and grabbing the plate of potatoes, and whoa, it's spilling all over. He's obviously dead. He looks gray, has a huge open sore here from the gunshot wound. It's just funny. And, I didn't take it too seriously watching. I could admire the gore and Clancy Brown from it, but, definitely not a great sequel by any means.
Yeah, compared to the first movie, that's super creepy, Zelda, the kid getting hit by the semi, just a lot of traumatizing scenes compared to this one. This movie was like funny. I laughed more than anything in this movie. I didn't take it too serious. It's just a fun sequel they did that's trying to compare, other movies in 1992 and also the grunge era during this time. So it's a lot of alternative rock and trying to be more cool and hip. And, it's just a fun movie to watch during Halloween and laugh at if you're looking for, a fun time. This came out in 1992. Batman Returns came out that year. Reservoir Dogs, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Unforgiven, Aladdin. There's a ton of movies that came out in 1992. So this is tough contender, comparing to other movies that came out this year. Straight to VHS, but for fans, people that like horror films like this, it was a good time.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, not one of the great horror sequels, but a fun rewatch to me, just to kick back and not take it too seriously or have to pay attention too much. Just laugh along with the Clancy Brown's performance and some of the, ridiculous things that the characters did in this movie and we're trying to do by like resurrecting the dog and all that. It's just, they're going for something different. Mary Lambert coming off the first one, which was much more serious and dark in tone. This one just upped the ante for no reason, led to some ridiculous, but a fun watch, I'd say. One of those horror movies that isn't good by any means, but is almost so bad that it's good.
Yeah, but the one thing I did want to bring up in terms of music, though, was Ramones did a song called Poison Heart for this. Like the first movie, they did Pet Sematary at the end. They did this in part two, which I thought was really awesome. Like how they did connect to the two, because the Ramones are one of the greatest punk bands of all time. I thought it really brought a cool atmosphere and ending for 1992 to this film. But overall, a decent rewatch. It's fun. If you're looking for a fun time during Halloween, just sit back, relax, watch some gory scenes. People get resurrected here in animals. I think you'll have a pretty decent time with this. Mary Lambert directed this movie alongside the first one being obviously the better one, but definitely a decent sequel to check out. So with that being said, I'm going to give Pet Sematary 2 that came out in 1992. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 Edward Furlong hairpieces.
And I am going to give Pet Sematary 2. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5 Anthony Edwards hairpieces. And that's right. And maybe this franchise would be better dead, judging by the last reboot that came out. And we also have an upcoming TV series that's going to be premiering on Paramount Plus, I believe, next month, that we will be back to review. So let's see if they can maybe revive the franchise or, further kill it and, in need of another resurrection, another 10 years down the line.
I think we're good. I think they're not going to get any better than the 80s one, the original one. Just different times. not going to really capture that yet, especially with the one that came out in 2019. What a train wreck. So not expecting much from Bloodlines, but hey, we'll go on and see how good it is and come back here and review it for all of you.
For sure. And we've been having a blast all 31 days of horror, reviewing movies and shows alike. We have a ton more to review. And we thank you guys so much for following along with us during this fun season on the 31 Days of Horror. We have a blast this time of year, and we can't wait to review more for you. Make sure to follow along with us on all our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and X, and our website, Cinephellas.com. And make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Cinephellas. So thank you guys so much for watching our review of Pet Sematary 2. Until the next review, cheers!